Dazod 500 presents Canadian Elections of History. The 44th election in Canadian history took place on the 20th of September 2021, following the drops of the writs of elections by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the 15th of August in 2021, requesting the dissolution of Parliament. The reason why he called this was because Mr. Trudeau was frustrated with that fact that he didn't have a majority government anymore and couldn't even govern like he had one because he was still quite far away from the threshold of getting into a majority. So he decided to call this election early because he believed that the Liberals were going to get a massive majority because of how he handled the COVID pandemic. COVID-19 started in 2019, but didn't actually affect anyone until 2020 when the government decided to mandate a lockdown and vaccines, which went over not so well with many young conservatives. Despite the fact that, yes, the Liberals were winning in the polls, but support from the general public is definitely temporary, and as soon as he called this election, practically his poll numbers started to diminish. Because think about it, there's so many people struggling to get around, and this Justin Trudeau calls an election in the middle of a global pandemic. What? So that he can increase the amount of seats and the amount of power that he has over everybody? Following his defeat in the previous election, on December 12, 2019, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer decided to resign. In the resulting Conservative leadership race ended up being won by the Durham MP Erin O'Toole. The Greens also switched party leaders. After Elizabeth May announced that she might not lead the Greens into the 44th general election, she resigned in 2019 as the leader of the Green Party, being replaced by Annamie Paul. On the actual campaign trail, actually one of the biggest reasons that they were fighting over was climate change. Is in 2019, climate change was a major issue in this campaign. In March 2021, O'Toole announced a carbon pricing plan to replace the carbon tax introduced by Justin Trudeau, despite previous conservative opposition to any form of a carbon tax. There was thus a broad consensus among all represented parties for policies to mitigate climate change, although they differed in emission targets, the level of the carbon tax, and the transition path to a clean economy. Only the People's Party opposed all climate change policies and vowed to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. Foreign policy, and especially of that to China, was a major issue on the campaign trail. The foreign policy debates focused on China and the situation in Afghanistan. For Afghanistan, discussions focused on ways to mitigate the immediate humanitarian crisis facing the country after the takeover by the Taliban following the United States withdrawing its troops from Afghanistan. As to the case for China, this campaign took place during the extradition case of Meng Wanzhou, who had been exacerbated tensions between Canada and China. O'Toole accused Trudeau of being weak on China and promised to scale up Canada's hostility towards the country if elected. On the issue of gun control, Conservative leader O'Toole changed his position on it, reverting from his initial promise of repealing Trudeau's May 2020 ban on assault weapons. He changed his stance on the issue, promising that he would not repeal the ban. Political commentators and analysts described O'Toole's leadership as shifting the Conservative Party to the political center. But of course, the big issue on the campaign trail was the COVID-19 pandemic. The Liberal Party sought to defend its pandemic response while trying to tie Erin O'Toole to Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. O'Toole always sidestepped questions about his previous support for Kenney's pandemic response by saying he would work with any premier to face the pandemic regardless of their political stripes. During the campaign, Alberta was experiencing its worst wave of the pandemic in terms of hospitalizations. Meanwhile, other parties explained that they would have done differently had they been in a similar situation. the Bloc Québécois criticized the amount of money invested in federal aid for workers, especially the Canadian Emergency Response Benefits. The NDP, on the other hand, criticized the government's aggressive crackdown on possible fraudulent CERB claims, while calling for clawing back wage subsidy payments to companies who fired their workers while receiving this benefit. The People's Party, again, was the only party opposing vaccine passports, mask mandates, and lockdowns. While most people on the inside would seem to agree that the People's Party, by disagreeing with all of this stuff, makes them seem like a really horrible choice for voters. But actually, their policies resonated with the certain type of people who you can kind of picture them in your head, you know what I mean? They actually started soaring in the polls, and they were projected by Main Street Research to get more than 8%, and Abacus data noted particularly high scores amongst Canadians under the age of 60. Justin Trudeau and Yves-François Blanchet indirectly accused the Conservatives for the rise of the People's Party, with Trudeau notably criticizing Erin O'Toole for not requiring his party's candidates to be vaccinated. While the People's Party were celebrating very well with good polling numbers, the Green Party seemed to be going in the other direction. The Green Party experienced a period of infighting beginning in June 2021, when Jenica Atwin, one of the party's only 3 MPs, crossed the floor to join the Liberal Party. Crossing the floor is switching your political affiliation, over a dispute regarding the 2021 Israel-Palestine crisis. Although there were calls for the party leader, Annamie Paul, to resign, she stayed on as leader through the federal election. She spent most of the election campaigning in her chosen riding of Toronto Centre, but failed to win the seat. 5 of the main party's leaders were present at all 3 of the debates held in this election. The only leader that was absent was Maxime Bernier from the People's Party. Claiming that he wasn't surprised, Bernier blamed the establishment cartel for his exclusion. As the final opinion polls came in, the race was tightening up between the Liberals and the Conservatives, with the NDP in a solid 3rd place. One thing was for certain though, the Green Party were on track for a horrific defeat, while the People's Party, who knows, maybe they'll even win a seat. And with 62.3% of the Canadians voting, 4.7% less than that voted in 2019, the winner of this election received 160 seats. Not quite enough for a majority, but still able to govern. The winner of this election got less votes than the second place party, 32.62% and 5.5 million votes, which is actually less than 33.7%, which is what the Conservatives got with 5.7 million votes. So the winner is actually going to be Justin Trudeau, winning a 3rd straight consecutive term. The Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives actually remained stagnant, and so did the Bloc Québécois in terms of seat share. Surprisingly, however, the Green Party also remained stagnant, staying at 2 seats, although they went down by 4.2% in the popular vote, most of it seemingly going to the People's Party, who went up 3.32% to 5% of the popular vote, winning 840,000 votes, although they didn't quite get a seat. This is the lowest percentage of votes that someone has ever received and formed a minority government. Justin Trudeau obviously stayed on as leader following the election, but surprisingly, so did Erin O'Toole. Well, at least he didn't resign. Instead, in 2022, he was kicked out by a caucus vote. The only party leader to voluntarily resign following the election results were Annamie Paul, sensing that her leadership was kind of the problem. She resigned, and Elizabeth May, surprise surprise, came back to rule the party. After seeing the election result and what a hassle it was to vote, a lot of Canadians were really upset with Justin Trudeau. I mean, he calls this election hoping to get a majority government, and he only goes up by literally 5 seats. It is the biggest shift the party got as well, just 5 seats. So a lot of people now are really mad at him. And because he doesn't want to call another election, which he would almost certainly lose, he had decided to go into a supply and confidence deal with Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats in April 2022. And I'll see you guys for the election of 2025.